In our local chef series, we join chefs from the greater DC region in their kitchens to explore some of their favorite plant-focused recipes. Kiran Saund is a DMV native trained in professional baking arts, a certified culinary arts, and is a wine sommelier. Food and selfless service has always been at the helm of Kiran's life. As a Sikh American, she has spent years volunteering in communal kitchens and teaching cooking classes. John Snyder, a Georgia native, was raised in his grandmother's kitchen. John worked under French master chef Jonathan Jerusalemi at the Lodge at Sea Island Resort. Upon leaving Sea Island, he was chef de partie at Highlands Bar and Grill, Ken Lee in Seattle, Washington, and Mini Bar by Jose Andres. Thank you, Kiran and John, for welcoming us into your kitchen.
Hi, thank you for joining us, everyone. So I'm Kiran. Like I was introduced by Elizabeth, I am the CEO and chef sommelier of Saund and Snyder, and we are both the culinary and service directors of our restaurant, The Setting. And so I'm Saund.
And I'm Snyder.
Yes. And so we are going to go ahead and start. So today we are making 3 dishes, and they are Punjabi dishes that I was raised on in my home. And so we're making Bataun Sabji, we're making Shahid Paneer, and we're making garlic naan. So Bataun Sabji is a stewed eggplant dish that has some potatoes in there, and it's full of spices. And then Shahid Paneer is a creamy tomato soup, and then we have the Paneer Cheese in there. It's a little bit similar to a butter chicken sauce, but no chicken plus paneer, but we also add some cashews in there as well. And then garlic naan, we all know what garlic naan is, so we're gonna be learning how to make that today as well. So let's get started. I am going to angle the camera now down over here to our pot, and I will be lifting the pot to show you what's going on and the cues that we're going to be looking for in the cooking process. One thing to note is that I've already chopped all my ingredients just because we're on a bit of a time crunch, but all of the specific measurements will be sent over to you throughout the process of this demonstration. So we're going to start with oil. And both our pots are, both my pots are turned on, and I'm going to do a splash of oil in both. We're going to be making both dishes, the Bataun Sabji and the Shahid Paneer, at the same time. And so if you at any point have any questions on where we're at or what we're focusing on, just let Elizabeth know and she will let me know, and I'm happy to emphasize on that. And so we're going to add our onions because I know my pan is already a little bit hot. Not as hot as I would want it. And so we're going to crack that up, and we're looking for the onions to be translucent and slightly like sweating, you know, when they start to release their liquid, and then we're going to add our next ingredient. All right, so let's get that going. The onions will be very fragrant, so I would definitely suggest not wearing a work outfit and then going to work afterwards, because it would be very fragrant of those onions. We're just gonna let that go. But yes, Elizabeth, do we have any questions while we wait for our pan to get a little bit hotter?
Yes, to start with, what kind of oil? Peanut, olive, other?
Love it. So you can use any oil that you prefer. I would not do olive. I would go more into the vegetable canola oils, because you are going to be pretty much frying at this point with how high the temperature is going to be. You can also use ghee. What I also love to do for that really good flavor is half ghee, half oil, because you still get the butteriness of the ghee. And ghee is clarified butter. And that is just, butter that you can put on your pot and separate, and then you remove the milk solids, and then that's the clarified butter, and it offers a higher cooking temperature when it's clarified butter versus regular butter, because those milk solids will burn. So now we're starting to hear our pot. The onions are communicating with us. We're waking up. Alrighty. And so one thing that we're going to be working on at this stage is we're making our tadka, which is our spice blend in the beginning. So in French food, you often hear about this term called mirepoix. That's like their home-based spice blend, where it's onions, carrots, and celery. And so Punjabi cuisine also has their own iconic spice blend, but that does vary home to home. So in my home, we always start all of our dishes with onion, ginger, garlic, and green chili. And that is the base of everything. So both pots are going to be starting there. And so as you can see, I'm going between both pots with the same utensil because right now it's the same ingredient. But I will be differentiating to a different tool once we start to shift into the separate courses, the separate sabjis. And now I'm getting that beautiful onion smell. We're getting a little bit translucent. The tadka that I was talking about, I also love to implement that in all of my cooking personally. Like I'm throwing that into my pasta when I'm cooking. I'm throwing that into my taco blend if I'm making tacos. I start almost every single dish that calls for onions with a tadka base instead. So that means onions, ginger, garlic, and chili.
Karen, could you spell that for us?
Okay, so this is going to be a little bit phonetic, and everyone is a little bit different. Some people throw a D in there, but the way I spell it personally is T-H-A-R-K-A. Some people do T-H-A-R-D-K-A. So, and some people refer to it as a different name completely. Like Southern Indian cuisine is very different than Northern Indian cuisine, and that's what we're focusing on today. So their main spice blend will feature things like curry leaves and mustard seeds, but Punjabi cuisine doesn't really feature that as much. And so my onions are communicating with me. So let me show you a little bit of what we're looking for. I'm just going to show you one pot because both pots are the same. And so you can kind of see they're starting to sweat. Let me know if you need me to go closer. And now
that was great. But I do have a quick question. So
yes.
One of the recipes tells us to put fenugreek in first to sort of get it going, but we're not doing that here. Can you tell us why?
Yes, we're actually going to add it now. And it's not very specific on when you need to add it. The whole point is that we're trying to infuse the oil with these spices and with these flavors. And so my grandma likes to add the fenugreek first. I like to add it later on. And what's really exciting about us doing this is that you're going to see that Indian cuisine varies home to home and person to person. There's no hard and fast rules with Indian cuisine. And so if you don't, for example, like with the fenugreek seeds, if you don't like fenugreek seeds, you don't have to add them. If you want to add them later on, you can add them later on. But the most important thing is that you're adding it during the cooking process rather than later on. So right now we're still in the cooking process, so we're good. I just wanted to get my onions going, but I'm going to add those seeds very soon. So now we're going to go into building the tadka. And so I'm adding my ginger to both. And this is a personal preference on how much ginger you can do. If you're not a big ginger fan, but you're more of a garlic fan, feel free to adjust to what you prefer. That is personally me. I'm a garlic fan. I'm the type of girl who if a recipe says 3 garlic cloves, I'm definitely adding 12 instead. So I'm also going to add my green chili. And so in the recipe, I say fresh green chili or dried red chili powder. And it's truly whichever one you have or what you can find at your grocery store. And so if you're working with the fresh green chili, this is when you're going to add it. If you're working with the red chili powder, I will tell you when you would add that later on. So we're going to give it a good little mix. And so I see all my small little things are starting to turn brown. And so this is when we're going to start working a little bit faster. And we just want our onions to get a little bit of a brown ring, but not full darkness. We're just trying to get a little bit of a Maillard reaction. That's what we call it in the industry. And that is when the natural sugars in a product start to caramelize. And so that's what we're looking for. So one tip that I'm going to say now is to always have a pitcher of water when making Indian food. That is going to be your saving grace. So at any point, if you feel like when you're cooking and you're seeing, oh, my garlic is starting to get a little bit darker, it's starting to burn, but not everything's cooked, the way that you can get ahead of it is by adding a splash of water to deglaze your pot or reduce the temperature of the contents within the pot so you can still work with it. And the best part of working with water is that it will evaporate, and all those spices that you added in the beginning will just condense back into the vegetables or the product that you're using. And you'll see that later on. So is the tarka blend that I was talking about. This is it right here. And it smells absolutely heavenly. Alrighty. And now I am going to go ahead and add my tomatoes. And so our paneer, or shahi paneer, is going to be a lot of tomatoes, while with our Bataun sabji, I'm only adding a little bit of tomatoes, just like how in the recipe it says 2 tomatoes. And so the reason we're adding the tomatoes to the Bataun sabji, this is truly a personal preference, and it's because I like how when the tomatoes break down, it kind of thickens the sauce, as opposed to not adding those tomatoes. But you'll see some recipes that don't have that included, so it is a personal preference. So I'm going to go ahead and add my tomatoes. And so this larger pot is going to be our Bataun sabji pot, so I'm only adding a little. And then our paneer is going to be predominantly those tomatoes. And so I'm going to add all the rest of those to my smaller pot and let that cook down. So as the tomatoes are cooking, their liquid is going to release and then eventually evaporate. But I like to use the waters that release from the tomatoes to kind of deglaze the pot. So as you see it's cooking, use your wooden spoon to really get at the bottom and scrape off any of that delicious Maillard reaction, any of that like brown goodness at the bottom, because that is flavor. I'm gonna pick up my feet, make sure it's for the right pan though. All right.
Kiran, is there any kind of specific chili that you would use in that green chili realm?
Yes, so Indian chilies, we love these tiny, thin green chilies, and Chef's gonna go grab one for me to show you guys. They are very strong and very small for their size, but if you don't have those, you can find those at any Indian store that you have. But if you don't have those, you can also use jalapenos. And so these are what they look like. Sometimes they're red. Red is totally fine. And so they're just these little guys. Oops, these are most commonly found in Indian cuisine, and they're often served on the side of Indian dishes for just a nice little kick, a nice little snack. We don't often use hot sauces in India or in Indian cuisine. We just eat the chili whole. That's what I was raised with. All right, so my tomatoes are getting nice and stewed. Now we add the spices. So the fenugreek seeds that we were talking about before, I'm going to add them now. All righty. So I'm going to add a spoonful of fenugreek seeds to my Bataun sabji. I'm also going to add my cumin seeds, and I'm also going to add my coriander seeds. I'm going to give this a nice stir. And we're going to toast these spices with this heat. But you want to make sure that these spices don't burn. So this is where having that water next to you is very important. If I see at any point that this is turning against me, I will splash that water and get it back to where I want it to be. And so we're looking at our shahi paneer pot, and we have these beautiful tomatoes, and they're still releasing their liquid. While they're releasing their liquid in the shahi paneer, I'm going to now add my cashews. What this is going to do is it's going to add a nice creaminess once we blend it all together at the end. If you are allergic to cashews or any nuts, totally fine. Don't add it in. We'll just add a little bit more cream at the end for you. And so, yeah, it's totally fine. So I am waiting for the tomatoes to release their liquid. And now that I'm seeing that they are, I know that that liquid, that like pool of water will start to cook these cashews down and soften them up. So that way when I blend them in the food processor later, it'll just be a quick puree. All right. So. Bataun sabji is looking gorgeous. Alrighty. So next we are going to add our dried spices to our Bataun sabji. This is when I definitely have the water ready. I just pulled the water closer. So this is a spice dabba, masala dabba. This is something you'll see commonly in a lot of Indian homes. The spices that are within it change home to home. Some people like to use whole spices. Some people like to put their powdered spices. Some people have two and like to have both. And that is what I'm eventually striving for. So in mine, I have chana masala, red chili, turmeric, cumin, dried coriander, garam masala, and paneer masala. Sometimes I like to add sumac in there if I have it on hand, but I don't today. It's okay. So here I'm going to add to my Bataun sabji. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of turmeric, and then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of the chana masala, and then I'm going to add salt and pepper. Where is my salt and pepper stuff? Oh, right here. So this is like the first layer of spices that we're building in this dish. And we're going to taste it again later to adjust and see what we would like to change according to our personal preferences. So now that I've added these dries, my tadka blend has started to just completely absorb it, so I don't want anything to burn. And so I'm going to add this splash of water to deglaze and prevent any burning. And so once again, I'm using the spoon to scrape at the bottom to deglaze this beautiful pot. And it's so beautiful. Let me pull it up to you. And we still have our tomatoes and cashews going in the tadka over here with our paneer. So I just want to show you a little bit. Oh, can you see? Yes. Just the beautiful yellow spice blend. And so one thing to note is whenever you're working with turmeric, do not wear white. That is my biggest advice for you. Do not wear white because it will be very hard to get it out of your clothing. Don't wear a white apron. If you have French tip nails, I would wear gloves or just be prepared for them to become yellow. There is probably a Punjabi girl somewhere rocking those, so I have no shame for that. All right, so this is getting nice and bubbly, and I'm very excited about it. So now with the Bataun sabji, we're going into the realm of now adding our dominant vegetables. So I'm going to go ahead and add my potatoes. And so here I have a couple of golden potatoes chopped up and peeled. You don't have to do golden potatoes. I know in the recipe I wrote that you can do russet potatoes or whatever potatoes you have on hand. But I would not do a sweet potato. Just starting there. So I'm going to add all my potatoes. Stir it up. And then I'm going to now fill it with water and have the water go about halfway up the potato. And I'm starting with the potatoes because the potatoes will take longer to cook than the eggplant. And if we add the eggplant now with the potatoes, it's not the end of the world if you do that on accident. It will just lead to a more mushier eggplant at the end. And if you do chop these vegetables ahead of time, then I would definitely recommend keeping both of these vegetables submerged in cold water before you're ready to throw them in the pot, because both of these vegetables will turn brown if they're exposed to air as you're cooking all these things.
Speaking of eggplant, if you don't have access to the baby eggplant, could you sub Asian eggplants or globe eggplants, or the Italian eggplant?
Yes, any small eggplant will work. So whichever you have a preference for, whatever your local grocery store is selling. The whole point of the smaller eggplant is that it's a little bit firmer in texture. You can use also the larger eggplant that we're all used to. I would just cook it for significantly less and try to get less of the seeds and use more of the meat within it. But any small, firm eggplant works. Baby eggplants are very common in Punjab, and so that's what my family was raised off of. Yeah. Okay, getting very excited. So we got our bubbles going on both of our pots. So now I'm going to leave the Bataun sabji alone for a little bit. We're going to go back to the Shahi Paneer. So just to recap on where we're at on the Shahi Paneer, we have added our tadka blend, and we have added our tomatoes, and now we've added our cashews, and so now I have to add our spices. So we're going to add some cumin, because I love cumin. We're going to add a little bit of coriander, whole coriander seed. And I love the taste of the fenugreek seed because it's a little bit tangy. And so I'm going to add that in as well. And so let's talk about the whole spices right now while we're here. Some people don't like tasting the whole spices or biting into the whole spices at the end when they're eating it, and that's totally fine, no shade. What I would recommend to you then is either using the powdered version of the whole spice, or if you have the time and are willing, I would dry roast or dry toast the spices ahead of time and then blend it in your spice grinder and then add that. And so it's still utilizing the whole spice and it's still perfect, but it won't be biting into the whole coriander seed, for example. I'm just trying to have you guys avoid using the powdered coriander or the powdered cumin or things like that because it's not necessarily like as close to using the whole product because they are mixed with a bunch of things so that way they can last on the shelves. All right, so I added my whole spices to the paneer. Now we're gonna go back to our beautiful little masala dabba. I'm gonna add them to my paneer. And so now I'm adding the turmeric and I'm going to add some of the chana masala as well. And so as you're hearing, I'm saying the term chana masala. And so that's also actually a dish made with chickpeas. It's also called chole in Punjab. And so my family loves to use chana masala instead of garam masala, which is something that you may have commonly heard associated with Indian cuisine. These are all different spice blends that vary. And so this is just something that my family has grown off of using chana masala. My grandma loves it more than garam masala. She never tells me why, but from my analysis, I think it's because garam masala is a little bit deeper and darker in their spices, while the chana masala adds dry mango powder, which kind of lends a little bit of tartness. And there's also some chili in there commonly. And so it's a little bit more balanced as a spice blend. And so that's what my family personally prefers. So if you find yourself working with garam masala and you're just not here for it, try chana masala. You might lean towards that. Paneer masala is also delicious. Alrighty, so now our pots are boiling and we're getting them going. Let's see how our potatoes are doing. And so now I'm gonna ask Chef to give me a paring knife and I'm gonna poke the potatoes and see where we're at. We want it to give just slightly, but not completely fall apart and split because that will mean that it's fully cooked, and I just want it to give slightly, which means that it's slightly cooked. And that is exactly where we're at, perfect. So now I'm gonna add my eggplants to our Bataun Sabji dish. These are my eggplants. I've quartered them. And the size is not too important. Just try to keep them as close as possible to the same size. So I'm going to mix it up, and then I'm going to top it off with water to have it halfway up on the vegetables, so that way they can all cook down a little bit. And so from this point, we're kind of almost done. Pretty much. This is like the final step. Now all we're going to do here is we're going to wait for all the vegetables to cook. We're going to taste it later, see if it's the spices are where we want them to be and adjust, and then it's done. So really simple with that. So we're going to leave that alone for a little bit.
Since you're stirring the one that has turmeric in it, I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. We know
Yes.
Turmeric will change the color, but can you tell us a little bit about what it adds in terms of flavor?
So turmeric, from my experience, it doesn't add much in terms of flavor, but it has a lot of health benefits. And that's why a lot of Indians add it into their cuisine. So it has anti-inflammatory anti-inflammatory properties. And then it also aids in digestion. And then they're also rich in antioxidants. All of these spices are also like that. So the coriander seed, the cumin seed, all of these things are linked to those. And so the turmeric actually does not lend too much flavor, but it definitely lends that color that we're talking about. And then also all those health benefits. So you can omit it if you're interested in that as well. Alrighty. So I'm going to ignore our Bataun Sabji. And now I'm going to add our tomato paste to our paneer pot. And so let's talk about the tomato paste. That is not something that you commonly will see in a Shahi paneer dish. This is something that my mother has taught me. And I love it. I think adding the whole tomatoes and the tomato paste lend two different great properties of tomato. And so the whole tomatoes create this great thick sauce that we're looking for at the end, the whole tomatoes when they cook down. And then the tomato paste itself gives you that really strong tomato flavor. Now, since we're talking about vegetables here with the U.S. Botanical Gardens, if we're at the end of the summer and our tomatoes are just like perfect and ripe and they've just really like enhanced on all of their natural flavors from being in the sun all summer, I would not use tomato paste. I would just only use the whole tomato and just emphasize on that natural sweetness and that natural goodness. But if you're working with tomatoes that aren't so great, that is when I would add that tomato paste. All right, so we are now going to take this pot that I will try to show you. I know the angle's not as great. And we're gonna now put it in the blender. Can you see it? Yeah, we can see it. Alrighty, so now I'm gonna blend this up. Oh, TV magic, my blender has arrived. Alrighty. Alrighty, so one thing to note is that I am a professional, and so I will be working with a hot pot, putting it into a blender, and so I'm gonna be working with a lot of hot ingredients here. If you do not feel comfortable with working with this heat and transferring between two different pieces of equipment, that's totally fine. At this point, you turn off the heat, let it cool down to your desire and how cool you feel comfortable working with it, and then you will add it to your pot. Okay, so right now I'm just gonna go ahead and add it to the pot. But use caution. So I'm adding everything to the pot, and I'm keeping this pot with me because we will be using that again. Don't forget about your Bataun, so let's give that a good stir and let that cook it down. And then I need this lid. Thank you, perfect. And I'm gonna add a little bit of water. And so before I press go, I'm going to mute us real quick because it is a very loud noise. And so just so before I mute it, I'm going to blitz it until it is my desired puree. And so if you want a little bit of coarseness, so that way you have that texture when you're grabbing it with your naan, totally love that, totally support that. If you want it to be that creamy thinness, then I would add a little bit more water and keep that blender running. So I'm going to mute us real quick while I do that. So it's not getting as thin as I want it to. So I'm going to add a little bit more water because I'm noticing it not breaking down as much. So I'm going to add more water and keep blending. So that was my pause. I'm going to mute again. Alrighty, and we are good to go. And this smells like heaven. I'm so excited, wow. All right, so we are gonna now take all of our beautiful liquid and add it back to our pot because when we're cooking at home, I like to be making those one pot wonder dishes. I'm not interested in doing all those dishes at the end, yeah. Alrighty, and let's get this blender out of the way.
Speaking of pots, what are your pots made of?
My pots here, that's a great question. Cast iron, they're made out of cast iron. Thank you, Chef. You can use any heavy bottomed pan that you have at home. And if you don't have a heavy bottom pan, that's totally fine. Just be a little bit more mindful of things sticking to the bottom of your pan and keeping that water by you so you're doing that deglaze. That is definitely your friend if you do not have a heavy bottomed pan. So I added everything back to the pot, and now I have my heat going. And so now we're at a point where we are going to add our cream, and then we will taste. Once I bring it to a boil, I'm still waiting for it to come to temperature. And here, as you can see, I've added some texture. Let's see if you can see it actually. I've kept some texture because I'm the kind of girl who, when I'm picking it up with my, when I'm picking my dish up with my garlic naan, I like to actually like scoop up some of the solids, some of the contents, rather than it just being soupy. If you're now serving this over rice, then I would definitely blend it a little bit more, maybe, and have it a little bit more soupy. And here we are, we're bubbling. And as we all know, when we are making our marinara sauces and working with our tomato soups, that tomato-based things love to bubble at us, so just be very mindful of that. Keep your distance or wear long sleeves, whatever you need. And keep the temperature low as well. So now my pot is talking to me, and I'm gonna add my cream. So the thing with adding cream, cold cream to a hot pan, or room temperature cream to a hot pan, is that it can curdle if you do not keep the pot moving while you add it. And that's because you're shocking the cream. The cream is literally like, oh my God, it's so hot. And then all the liquid within the cream separates from the fat, and then it just breaks, and it's gross. So what you want to do is you want to keep your ladle stirring, or your wooden spoon or rubber spatula stirring, and then you're going to add your cream in a steady stream. If you need someone to help you and be the stirrer while you add the cream, do it. It's all good. So I'm going to go ahead and add, and I'm stirring, and it looks so gorgeous. I wish I could show you all that. And so now we're just going to the desired color that we want. I like to get it to this like nice peachy orange. If you don't want to add cream, and you want something a little bit lighter, you can try whole milk. You could also try a nut alternative milk, but I would definitely keep in mind that that would affect your overall texture. So don't forget about your Bataun Sabji. Make sure you give that a nice stir. And she's still going. And so our Shahid paneer is now ready for us to add our paneer. And so here is our Paneer cheese. And what is paneer? It is a buffalo cow's milk, and it is turned into a cheese. And this cheese is commonly associated with the texture of tofu. And just like how tofu comes in varying firmnesses, so does paneer. So you have soft paneer, you have firm paneer, all these different types, and they all have their different beautiful uses. One thing that I would definitely say is if you're cooking for the family or you're cooking with kids or something, you can always punch the paneer to be fun little shapes and sizes, like little stars or hearts or whatever, or you could have the kids do that for some fun. And this cheese can totally be eaten raw, and so you're totally fine. That's just a fun little thing. I like to do that with my nieces. And so I'm just adding that to my pot and stirring. And we just want the cheese now to come to temperature. And now, both of our pots are at the point of the final taste and the final seasoning adjustment. So I'm gonna grab a spoon, and I'm gonna taste both these things, and we're gonna do the seasoning adjustment together. I'm gonna have my spoon. Thank you, Chef. So we're gonna start with the Shahid paneer. Okay. She's good, but definitely needs salt. I'm also going to add a little bit more chana masala, and I want it to be spicier, and so I'm going to add my red chili. And so I'll let that warm up a little bit, and I'll taste again. And in the meantime, I'm going to taste my Bataun Sabji, and I'm still trying to get that liquid to evaporate. Alrighty. And in the meantime, while that evaporates, I'm going to pass it over to Chef. I'm going to add some salt to this. But otherwise, the Bataun Sabji is ready to go. So, our two dishes are done. The Shahid paneer is completely done. I'm going to let the eggplant continue to cook down until the liquid is a little bit more evaporated, because I like it to be a little bit more of a drier dish. But otherwise, we are done on our dishes, and now I'm going to pass it over to Chef Snyder, and he's going to show you how to make the garlic naan.
And Kiran, while we're getting passed over, I do have a couple questions for you.
Yes.
So we can start getting organized. But one question is, have you ever used or experimented with condensed milk instead of cream?
Have I ever, sorry, say that again.
Condensed milk as an option.
Condensed milk. I have never used condensed milk instead of cream because that is very sweet and that would go more into a dessert. And I don't think that would give us the same results. I would go maybe into a whole milk rather than a condensed milk, maybe even evaporated milk rather than a condensed milk. But condensed milk is way too sweet, so I wouldn't work with that personally.
And do you have any recommendations for somebody who is looking for a dairy-free option?
Yes, I would. Okay, so if you like coconut milk and you don't mind the flavor of coconut milk kind of lending in to your dish, you can also use coconut. But since we did the cashews in there, I think a great pairing would be doing cashew milk. Just keep in mind the texture will be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit thinner than the thickness that you're seeing here. So I would definitely go cashew milk, but any preferred nut milk that you like, cook with what you like, you know.
And can you tell us what paneer is again?
Yes, paneer is a buffalo milk and or buffalo milk cheese, and so the dairy farmers in Punjab make it, and it is the texture of tofu, and they have varying textures just like tofu of soft, firm, and in between. And so yes, that is what paneer is, and we commonly use it in all of our dishes. Shahi paneer or saag paneer is something that a lot of people are familiar with, but it is a cheese with the texture of tofu.
And for you to consider while Chef John is working, I think people heard you were a sommelier and they're wondering about potential wine pairings for these dishes. So that's
oh my god, love it, guys!
You get that into your mind.
Oh my gosh, okay, that is.
So great. you can be considering that, but we'll come back to you. And okay. Chef John, just so that you're not worried about this, we won't kick you off right. Take the time you need to make your dish. So
okay, no problem. Then that's perfect. I'll think about the wine pairing, but in the meantime, I'll let Chef Snyder show you guys how to make the garlic naan. How's that?
Fabulous.
Perfect. Let's do it.
It's so fantastic. Kiran's been working on 2 different Sabjis over there, like literally just a boss in the kitchen doing 2 things at once. But we're going to go for a little more relaxing atmosphere. We're going to do some garlic naan. All right. So I have my stand mixer here. It's not required. You can just use a bowl and a wooden spoon. If you don't want to get your hands messy, you can use it on the table and just do it by hand. But we're going to do it in a stand mixer today. Okay. So we have, I believe it's 2 1/4 cups of flour. We're going to add into our stand mixer.
John, before we get too deep into that, if you wouldn't mind tilting the camera up just a little more so we can see your face, that would be wonderful.
Absolutely. How's that?
Wonderful. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. So this is how we make it a little bit easier for us. We're going to add in 2 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour. We're got a little warm water that we added our yeast packet to earlier, and it's gotten a little bubbly, so that means it's active, and we can go ahead and add that into our flour mixture as well. For this recipe, we're going to use some neutral oil. You can use canola, grapeseed oil, vegetable oil, any neutral oil. I would stay away from olive oils, extra virgin olive oils. They impart a lot of flavor. As we know, olive oil is kind of peppery, a little spicy. You want to keep it neutral. Got our yogurt. This is a plain yogurt. This is actually made at Kiran's home. They make their own yogurt there, but you can buy Greek yogurt. You can go to your local Desi store and get some yogurt that they use. Just a plain yogurt. And that's going to add the fat that we need to make this dough combine. All right, so we're just going to go ahead and turn this on low. And it's going to combine all together. It's going to run for about 5 minutes, okay? This is like one of my favorite preparations to do because it's 4 ingredients. It takes about 5 minutes to make, and then you have to wait an hour for it to proof. But I mean, I don't think there's any replacement for fresh bread, and this is about the easiest way you can make it. So it's really awesome.
And you can always start with the garlic naan and let it set for that hour, and then focus on the 2 dishes that we made together while that's proofing.
Absolutely. And this is what happens when you use turmeric. All your equipment turns yellow.
I warned you guys. I told you that.
So we're scraping down the side of our bowl because naturally, it'll clump up on the side. So we're just going to scrape it down, and it's going to come together just like that, okay? Beautiful. Yeah, I really love naan. Naan is traditionally, it's cooked in a tandoor oven, which is a clay oven that's used for roasting meats, cooking naan. It's also completely possible to do it in a cast iron or a heavy bottom skillet at your home. It's super easy, and we're going to show you how to do that today.
Chef, I have
Alright.
it at medium high, got it?
I want it at medium, please.
Medium, yes.
All right, so our doughs come together.
Can you tilt the
spring.
camera down so we can see it?
Absolutely, we can. So as you can see, it's just come together in the bowl. It's no longer sticking to the sides, which is great. And then we are, sorry, I'm just trying to get it so you guys can see as well. We're gonna go ahead and put this in our bowl. I would cover it with plastic wrap because doughs will create a film. I would cover it with plastic wrap and let it proof in a warm place for about an hour. And I've already done that, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull out my other one.
Have you experimented with gluten-free flour in making naan?
You can absolutely use gluten-free flour. Now, there still needs to be a binding agent in that. And usually gluten-free flour does come with xanthan gum or xanthana already added to it. But if you are using a gluten-free flour that doesn't contain a binding agent, you would need to add a binding agent to it. So I have our naan that's been proofed for an hour. It's nice and fluffy and yeasty. And we're gonna flour our table lightly. And then we'll start working with our bread. This is gonna produce about 8 small portions or 4 really nice big portions. And I prefer to have a nice big portion when I'm eating my sabji. So we're just gonna cut it into 4s today, okay? So you can take a little knife, bench scraper, whatever have you. We're just gonna cut it into 4 squares. And then I'm gonna tilt my camera down so y'all can see me kind of roll it out if that's okay. Perfect. Perfect. So we're gonna flour a little bit, get in there. And then I'm just working this with my hands. I'm just patting it down, forming our circle. It's really easy to work with and it comes together quite well. Give me a little flour on this side too. I love working with bread. It's very methodical and relaxing, and it's just nice, the smell of it. So this is garlic naan, and the way we're gonna infuse that garlic there, it's super simple. You just take some diced garlic that you have. We're gonna sprinkle it on the table, in little pieces. We don't want clumps. We just want kind of like, a sprinkle. And then we'll take our dough, put it over on the back of your hand so we don't tear it. And we're just gonna lay this down on top of the garlic. And we'll just give it a little press. Okay, and what that's gonna do, it's gonna just put all that garlic into the dough. Now here's the thing, we don't wanna do this on both sides because there's gonna be a hotter side of the naan and we don't want that to burn. So I would recommend only garlicking one side of your bread, and that's the side that we're going to finish the bread on. I'll explain more about that in just a second when we get into our pans, okay? So here's our first one. You can see that the garlic is all over that thing, perfectly coated. And we're gonna set this one to the side, and we're gonna do one more.
As you're doing that, can you tell us whether we could use whole wheat flour instead of all-purpose?
Yeah, you can definitely use whole wheat flour. The thing with whole wheat, it's gonna give you a little bit more denser of a dough. What I like doing, if you wanna add whole wheat, I do half and half. And you really still get a lot of the whole wheat flavor, but you still maintain the deliciousness and fluffiness that an AP flour or a white flour would bring.
And with whole wheat flour, I'm just gonna come down with y'all. Whole wheat flour is commonly also used for rotis or chapatis, as some people call them. And you can also make that instead, and that would be so much easier and so much faster. Then garlic naan that doesn't feature any yeasts or anything like that. It doesn't need to proof or anything. And it's truly just whole wheat flour and water mixed together, activate the gluten, and then you kind of make a tortilla. But I would search how to make a roti, R-O-T-I, or chapati, C-H-A-P-A-T-I, online to see how to make those as well if you're interested in the whole wheat option as well. So give it back to Chef.
All right, fantastic. So we have both of our naans assembled. We're ready to start out on our cast iron skillet.
All right, let's
so
do it.
we want to move the camera so we can do
Let's
it over here?
move this camera.
Fantastic. Thank you, Chef.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. Okay.
So we're just going to start off with a little bit of oil in a hot pan, okay? I've had my pan on medium heat for about 3 minutes. We want to make sure the bottom is pretty much covered in oil. Nothing standing, but definitely seasoned. Okay? And then I'm going to get my naan bread.
Your naan.
So like I said before, we want to do the bottom side first that doesn't have the garlic on it because that's our hotter side.
And so,
Okay.
Chef, what did you just add to the pan?
I added a little bit of salt just to catch on the bread.
Is that used as a seasoning method, or is that used?
It is just
For it to
to
not
just
stick.
to season the bottom.
Cool.
Mhm. All right, so we're gonna let that start sizzling, and we're gonna start getting bubbles in just a second. It's gonna form these really nice bubbles, and that'll be the key to kind of flip it, just like pancakes. You know what I mean? So when those pancakes start getting like these big bubbles coming out of them, that's when you know how to flip them. We're gonna do the same thing with this bread.
And is this camera angle all right, everyone? I'm gonna put it back up.
Fantastic.
Well, while we're waiting for those bubbles, are there any more questions?
Any questions we can answer?
I can answer the wine question if we want to do that now.
Let's do it.
Okay, so I love bubbles, so I'm going to start there. I love a brut sparkling, so any dry sparkling, you can do a crémant, you can do a champagne. A crémant is a sparkling wine from France that is not from the Champagne region, so it's still stellar, absolutely stellar sparkling wines for like a fraction of the price. So I would definitely start channeling into the crémants and bruts, or you can do a cava. If you're not a sparkling fan, Chef is not a sparkling fan, totally fine, more for me. You can drink a Gewürztraminer. Wines like that are more floral forward, and so the flowers often can help, I don't want to say suffocate, but they can help balance out the spices in very like spicy, robust dishes like Indian food. So I would use a Gewürztraminer. You can also pair these things with like Thai food as well, other spicy Asian ingredients or Asian dishes. And so I would also pair a Pinot Noir. If you're a red person, I know we have our red people. I would not do a Cab Sav. My mom is that kind of girl, no shade. So if we're going to do a red, I would go to a lighter red, like a Pinot Noir. But definitely suggesting a Gewürztraminer, maybe an Alsace Riesling, because those are more rounded Rieslings a little bit, but not too sweet, more rounded and creamy, but not overwhelmingly sweet. So it'll still balance the spiciness. So let's go with an Alsace Riesling, a Gewürztraminer, any brut sparkling that you like, or a Pinot Noir if you need to have a red. Is that cool? How do we all feel about that?
I tell you, I feel great, but we'll have to see what our friends in the chat tell
Just
us.
drink it all, you know? Oh, love the
Oh,
thumbs
look,
up.
we're
Thanks,
getting the
guys.
thumbs
Oh my
up.
gosh.
Fantastic.
How are we looking, Chef?
Well, we're actually starting to get some of
Clean
those
it.
first bubbles. So if you want to take a look down, they're really small. You're going to see them on the sides first, but you can just tell there's just turning into little mountains all over our naan bread. And we're almost ready to flip very soon, very soon.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you want me to like get closer to that, or was that okay?
I
So
mean,
I
I
think we're going to flip.
think, yeah, let's flip and then we
Okay,
can.
let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So I'm just going to use a little spatula to get up underneath here. And then we're just going to do a flip. And
Oh,
look at that.
beautiful.
It's nice and seasoned. You can see the salt all over it. And so now, like I said, that hot side and the garlic side has now been flipped over and it's on the pan now. And we're not going to leave that on there as long because we don't want it to burn or anything. But we also don't need to leave it on there as long because most of the cooking has already happened on this side. Okay? So it'll be ready in about 30 seconds. We're going to pull it off.
Cool. And so as you can see all these little wrinkles that have developed in this naan, And so that's because it was a little bit larger than the pan. So also keep that in mind. If you don't want these wrinkles and you just want it to be nice and flat, then just make your circle smaller than your pan.
All right, so we're ready to remove our naan from the pan. I'm just gonna pick it up with my hands here. And as you can see, you have just a beautiful little toasted flat bread. It's beautifully fluffy and warm. It smells absolutely fantastic. So what we're gonna do, or we're not gonna do it today. You normally brush a little melted butter on top. I'm trying to take it easy on butter these days, so we're gonna leave it just seasoned, right? All right, and we're gonna garnish with a little cilantro as well. That's beautiful. All right. Do you want me to hold that?
Yes, sure. Okay, we're doing a little in between on the camera right now. And so this is our final product. Sure. Okay, so this is our final product. This is a traditional Indian serving dish. And so we have our tiny little bowls, and this is where our Shahi paneer is. We've garnished it with cilantro. And then this is our Bataun Sabji. We've also garnished that with cilantro. If you're not a cilantro fan, totally fine. My best friend is not, no shade. You can do parsley or methi seeds, which is fenugreek, or not the seeds, I'm sorry, fenugreek leaves itself. That's what my mother loves to do. That will implement a lot more of a floral flavor. So I like doing cilantro. Sorry, little tangent. And then here we have our fresh dahi, the yogurt that we made at home, and the garlic naan. And so that's it. Here we are.
Wow, that looks so amazing. Thank you all.
Of course. Thanks for joining us. And if you have any other questions or anything, or if you're making this at home and you have questions about the process or have a great final product, please send it to me. Message me on Instagram. I'm at Saunds Saunds, and then good. So I'm happy to answer any questions that we didn't get to today over there. Love the thumbs up. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, Kiran and John, for an excellent presentation. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining us and asking such great questions. That concludes our program today.